Hello everyone, this is Veena, Assistant Professor in the Department of English, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today in this video, I am going to cover the major aspects which you have to understand and learn while writing your formal letters. Why is it important to learn to write formal letters? Because those are the most important entities in your professional career. That is, when you get into your professional life, you have to write letters and email to your officials regarding your project works, your ideas, your creative entities, etc. So, it is very, very important to know proper format, structure of writing the formal letters. Being very specific and also mentioning all those points which are very, very important to address to your people is very important area. So, therefore, you are going to learn today the format of formal writing. Here, what is a letter? Before we get to know about formal letter, what is a letter? A letter is a written document mentioning a message or providing an information to the other person. As it is mentioned here, a letter is a piece of conversation by post. So, the letter, the message is posted to the other person by providing information which you are going to render to him or her. On what basis, on what requirement, on what purpose is the important entity. So, when you write your letter, you will have something to render to that particular person. Then, is it only writing something is important or formatting it in the way such that it appeals to your reader is important? Both are the very, very important terms. That is, you must be very specific in delivering your message through the letter. Point 1. Then point 2 is, how is that you are formatting your letter such that the other person likes to read it, or it will attract the reader, it will attract the person who is going to read your letter. So, that is what is more important when it comes to your formal letter. Formal letters are written in the purpose of rendering your professional needs, writing to the officials, writing to the authorities. So, you must be very specific and you must have clear idea of what you are writing, because the other person do not have much time to read your letter, as he is an authoritative person who has lot of work. So, you have to be very specific, mentioning the main idea of your letter and also trying to appeal or trying to please on a very soft note. Now, how many types of letters do we generally have? We generally have formal letters, informal letters. Again, in formal letters, we'll have business letters, complaint letters, and all those stuff. Before we start to know about the formal letters, now let us once have an overlook over the types of letters. Now, what are the types of letters? Formal letters and informal letters. Formal letters are written to the authorities, to the people who are our officials, whom we address formally. When it comes to informal letters, we will write it to our friends, our family members, our relatives, etc. Even your informal letters have particular format. Though you are using informal language, informal way of addressing them, still you have to follow particular format to informal letters too. Now, what are formal letters? What kind of letters come under this category? Now, 1. Business letters. To make the purpose of rendering your needs in the business firms, you use this formal letters. Under formal letters, why do we write? We write to inquire, we write in the purpose of placing, counseling, etc. Next, official letters. Official letters we write as letters of complaints, making requests, readdressing the grievances. That is, if you have any problem, if you have complaint, any such thing which you are writing to an official is an official letter. Now, letters to editors. Why do we write letters to editors? We may be writing on the purpose of giving an article, a journal on the current affairs which you want to focus on, which you want to bring into the notice of the public, that you will write to the editors. Then letters to principal. Why do we write letters to our principal? Whether it can be a application for leave or permission letters, etc. Then coming to job applications. Official letters can be job application letters to the employers, etc. Then letters of complaint. All these things come under the formal letters. So, while addressing the person whom you are about to tell or convey your need or your purpose, how is that you're going to make that structure possible? Make that person pleased with your letter such that your need will be catered is the most important aspect. So, today we will learn in detail the formal letters and the format of it and the way you have to represent it. Now, what is a formal letter? Formal letter, also called business letters or professional letters. Why do we call them as business letters or professional letters? In our workspace, we generally tend to inform or suggest or make use of these letters to convey the information to the employers or the employees if we are the official of that organization. Maybe passing the circulars, maybe emailing them the important purpose of your ideas or your project works. All these things come under the professional letters or the business letters. So, as future professionals, it is very, very important for all the students to learn how to write formal letters. What is the right format? What is the way of salutation you have to use to address the officials? Today, we will look into them and try to understand and practice all those things such that you have good growth in your professional films. Now, formal letters are naturally much more formal in style. Here, you are not going to salute saying dear or any other kind of thing. You are going to be very formal in addressing the person while writing the letter. So, completely in a formal way, being specific and being brief in telling the information or providing the information or writing or making a request, anything you have to be very, very formal to address to your officials. Then, the letter which is written according to the formal rules. How will it be written? With formal rules and regulations of an organization is called formal letter. Now, as a professional in an organization, we have to abide by the rules and regulations of the organization such that when you are emailing or writing a letter, be very, very cautious about what are the guidelines, what are the rules of your organization, which you have to follow while you are writing a letter to that person. So, this is very, very important, which we have to be very, very cautious enough to follow. Next, this type of letter always maintains the formalities of the office. Always try to maintain all the formalities of the office, particularly with regard to the rules and regulations of that organization. Therefore, formal letters must be written very formally, specifically in a brief form, rendering all the information or making the request in a very formal way such that it appeals the reader of your letter. Now, what are the elements which can be written for a number of, what are the reasons? you write the formal letters. What can be the reasons? Here are some reasons where you try to write a formal letter. Let us see them. To express your concerns in the professional setup. Concerns are your problem. If you are facing any kind of concern, any kind of information is not known to you, you have some issue with someone or something, then you write a letter to your official. Next, to provide official information across your workspace. That is, if you are about to provide information to the entire unit of your organization, that is, it may be a circular or any information which has to be known by all the employers of that group, you will be sending a formal letter. Next, in order goods to apply for employment. So, to order some goods in terms of trade, in terms of export and import needs, you will be writing the letters. And to apply for employment, when we are writing an application for the sake of any place in an organization, that is placement, we write formal letters. Next, to the editor of a newspaper, addressing the problems faced by various groups of people in different areas, etc. We tend to write letters to the editors of the newspaper, maybe expressing a grievance or a problem faced by some people in some area, etc. It can be any topic. So these are some of the ways, some of the reasons where you write a formal letter. Now, how is that you're going to write that formal letter such that the person reads it and he will address your concern? Let us look into it. Now, structure of a formal letter. What is the structure? What are the important elements which you all have to remember to structure a formal letter? Let us see now. In order to be able to write a formal letter, you have to first understand the reason behind it. Try to have a clear picture of the reason for what you are writing the letter. If you are not sure about what you are writing, please don't take up that letter at that point of time. Because only when you have clear picture of the element, what you are writing, then only you can write it formally, specifically. If you are not clear about that particular element or the topic, then see that you will not write that letter at that point of time. Try to have clear picture while you start the letter. Next, as far as formal letters are concerned, the structure of the letter changes depending on the type of letter. Now again, all formal letters don't have the same kind of format. It depends on the type of letter. If it is a business letter, it may be of other format. If it is a complaint letter, it may be in a other format. So try to understand this difference of format while you write the letters. That is very, very important. Just don't go on use the same pattern for complaint letter, for the application of employment, for writing some, for ordering some goods. No. Try to understand the criteria of which you are going to address that formal letter and try to follow that particular format, which is very, very important for you to address that official. Then, there are certain rules to be followed to be able to draft a formal letter. For every organization, for every institution, there are certain rules and guidelines. So, you have to, for sure, follow all those rules and guidelines and address that particular person in that way they want you. So, it is very important to have the awareness about the rules, the regulations of that particular organization or the entity to whom you are going to address that letter. Next, every sentence should be thought out and laid down in such a way that the message you want to convey should be precise and clear to the reader. So, structure your letter in such a way that the information what you are providing must be very precise, very brief, and also clear. You're not going to write pages and pages in the formal letter. You are going to be very specific, very formal, very clear and brief. Specific, formal, clear and brief. Try to follow these 4 things when you are formulating a formal letter. That is very, very important. Now see, what are the types of formal letters? We will try to segregate, understand them and understand the formal format of each type of formal letter. Now, what are the different types of formal letters we generally have? We have business letters, letters of application and letters to newspapers. Generally, we come across these 3 kinds of formal letters. Now, business letters. Now, what are business letters? What are the needs which cater the business letters format of writing? Now, business letters should be terse, clear and to the point. Here, remember very well that the person is very busy whom you're going to address in the business from. So, be clear, be terse and to the point. Just try to place the point specifically. Mention specifically and formally and be assertive of whatever you are telling them through the letter. Next, there is no room for any kind of stories in the business letter. Don't try to write some story or some information in a very descriptive and paragraphs. No, you're not going to describe in detail in so many paragraphs as you are writing some story. Try to be precise. Try to be specific. Next, before you start to write a business letter, there are few things which you have to keep in mind. What are those? Use simple, everyday language to convey the message clearly. Simple, everyday language which is formal. You will be using. You are not going to create a story or narrate a story in the business letters. That will not at all put your point forward in front of the person whom you are addressing the letter. So, try to be very formal, try to be simple but specific in placing your point before the official. Next, never use jargon that is commonly used in business when you write a business letter. Don't use some language or short forms or any kind of language which is not at all formal, so that it gives bad impact on the person who is reading that letter. So, try to remember all these points while you're formulating a formal letter. Now, avoid using the abbreviations. Don't use abbreviation. Try to expand the abbreviation if there is any. Because the person who is reading the letter may not know the full form of that abbreviation. Then that is a problem. So, don't try to use abbreviations in the formal letter. Try to describe it in full. Expand the abbreviations while you are writing the letter. Next, the modes of address vary according to the type of letter and the receiver. So, which type of letter you are going to write? So, it differs. So, remember the way. Understand your reader of the letter. Try to understand what kind of person he is. How can your letter appeal that person? So, try to remember on what purpose you are writing, why you are writing. Will that person be able to understand your criteria for writing that letter and address it? Okay. So, remember all these points while formulating your formal letter. Next, clear and exact description of the articles necessary with the expected quality and quantity. Remember this very, very importantly. Quality and quantity. Your letter must have both quality and quantity. It is very, very important. It should be very, very accurate, specific, formal, simple, so that its quality is good, such that the reader get impressed and understand your problem and then they address you back. Next, when replying to your business letter. Now, how you will write? We have spoke about. Now, in what way you're going to reply to the business letter? Let us see. Always quote the date of the letter you are responding and to a number of references. So, when someone has written a letter to you, a business letter, try to address the date on which he has written a letter to you and try to refer the points which that person has mentioned to you in addressing the need. In that way, you have to reply them back the business letter. Don't just give a abrupt reply. Try to refer to the date on which they have sent you the mail or the letter and try to refer some important points which they have referred to write the letter. Next, formal and business letters includes letters from an employer to the employees and vice versa. Either the employer write to you or you write to the employer. It can be in the two-way communication process. Letters to order and replace goods, that is in terms of serving the needs of your professional and business firms. Then letters of serious concern. If you are facing any problem, if there is a concern that which you have to report to your official, then you will be writing it. Next, whom do you write? You write to the higher official, who is higher than you, who is above you. Letters of complaint, etc. So, you tend to write letters of complaint or any kind of business need you have to your officials in a very formal tone. Be specific, be formal in addressing them. Then, while you are responding to the business letters, try to address the date and try to refer those important points on which you have written the letter. Next, letters of application. Now, we have seen what kind of business letters and how they will be catering your need. Now, letters of application. How you are going to formulate the structure of letters of application and what are the characteristics to address them. Now, letters of application usually consists of letters applying for employment. So, mostly letters of application are for applying for the employment. When you want to apply for a place in an organization, you write these applications. Next, before and after you read a letter of application, make sure you check the following things. These are the important things you have to keep in your mind while formulating an application letter to the officials. What are those? Always start with a short introduction stating whether the applicant is writing in purpose in response to a reference. So, always mention the reference of which you came to know about the vacancy of that post and you are applying for that post. Write a short introduction from which reference you got to know about this information and you are applying for that particular post. Next, state the age, education and experience of the application. So, be very specific enough to mention your age, your qualification and your experience while you are writing for the application of particular post. Next, provide the employer with genuine expression of applicant's earnestness in taking up the job. Then you have to be very sure of making him or her impressing by explaining them how you are very eager to join in that place and work for that organization. So, your mentioning of your interest in that work will also impress the reader of that letter and maybe that is one of the asset for him to call you back. So, try to mention the reference from where you got this news and try to mention your age, experience, your educational qualification clearly and then next you will tell him your interest in that area and also impress him in the way of joining that organization. Next, also furnish references so that employer can gather an idea of what kind of employee you would be. That is, you will write a very brief specific information about the organization about its details such that the employer understands that what kind of employee you are, in what way you are going to fetch the needs of the organization. So all these things are very, very important when you are writing a letter for the application of post. So you have to be very, very careful, brief, concise and specific about your needs, your experience, your age, everything, such that he will understand all the criteria in detail and respond to you back. Next, letters to newspapers. For what purposes we will write letters to the newspaper? 1. Always address these letters to the editor and end with yours faithfully. So always remember these two things while you write to the newspaper. One is address to the editor and you will write yours faithfully by the end of the letter. Next, letter to the editors are letters that express concerns. That is, you are going to express about some problem which some people are facing in some area, etc. So generally we write letters to the newspaper to express some concern, and we need them to grasp the attention of the government officials or anyone through their write-up or the article. Next, the letters should be professional and authentic. They must be completely written in the formal and professional way, and they must be very, very authentic in addressing the needs, addressing the concerns which you have to project in front of the editor. No newspaper would publish anonymous letters. So make sure you are writing the letter for a cause and provide your name and address correctly. So you cannot just write a letter for some or the other reason which is not at all relevant to the public or the people concerned in that particular area. See that there is a cause, there is a purpose for your writing letter, and mention your name and address clearly such that if there is any query, any kind of information which they need, they can contact you. So when you are writing a letter to the newspaper, try to be very specific, address a cause or a purpose, give your details clearly such that it will be effective in rendering it in the newspaper and it can be grasping the attention of the people who are reading it. Now, writing a formal letter. Parts of a formal letter. Now, how to write a formal letter? What are the parts that are involved in the writing of formal letter? Now, when writing a formal letter, always be respectful and conscious of your language. See that your language is very formal. Be conscious enough to not to use any language which is informal or which will offend the person whom you are writing the letter. So be very consciously aware of the language what you are writing. Next, no matter what the subject of the letter might be, to write a formal letter, there are some points which you have to follow. Point 1. Always start with the sender's address. What is your point 1? That is, always start with the sender's address. That is you, your address. Next, this is followed by the date. The receiver's address. From address, then date, then to address, whom you are sending the letter. The receiver can be the name of the firm or those who represents the firm. If you are writing for an organization, you can write the name of that business firm or the organization when you are terming it. Next, the subject of the letter is very important. It is the statement of the purpose of the letter. So, try to formulate the subject of the letter correctly, authentically, such that your message will be rendered in a very, very clear way to that person so that he can respond you back. Write all those details very clearly, precisely, in a very formal way such that it caters your needs and fulfill your purpose to write that letter. The salutation can be dear or sir, madam, but it's better you use respected. If it is, if he is the authority and if he is someone very person who is unknown to you, try to write respected. If it is a person do you know well, you can address them by their name. If you know him, you can address by their name. The body of the letter can be written in 3 paragraphs. It can be written in 3 paragraphs. First paragraph should introduce you and the purpose of your writing the letter. Then the second paragraph should furnish all the information for which you are writing the letter. And the third paragraph must give the conclusion to the purpose of your writing and your need and your expectation from that person in writing the letter. So you are going to formulate your body of the letter in 3 paragraphs. One, you will introduce yourself and the idea of which you are going to write the letter. Second thing, you will mention all the important details and the information which has to be understood by that person, and concluding with the need, necessity of fulfilling that criteria in addressing that person. So, keep in mind all these aspects. Then, to close the letter, you can use a complimentary closing like yours faithfully, yours sincerely. You can use these 2 terms while closing the letter. Then, unlike informal letters, the signature should include your name and also the date and your signature. So, these are very, very important things while you are formulating your letter writing, which is formal. Now, format of letter writing of formal letter. See, first you are going to write the sender's address, then date, then receiver's address, then subject. Subject is the is something what you are going to mention in 1 or 2 lines such that he gets the idea of on what basis you are writing the letter. For to cater which need, on what purpose you are writing the letter, it must be mentioned in the subject. Then salutation, then body, introduction and the main content with the conclusion in the content what you are writing in the letter. Then thanking you, then subscription, that is your faithfully, your sincerely, whatever it is, then the sender's name. So this is the format of your formal letter. Next, here is an example which will show the format of the formal letter. First, here it is the sender's address, then the date, then the from address. Here we are writing the subject, potholes in our locality in causing difficulties. Here we are addressing a concern about some problem in the locality. And here in 3 paragraphs, here we have mentioned the problem with the introduction, with the main important ideas, which main important issues where people are facing the problem, and then we have concluded it in the end. At the end, thanking you, then sincerely with name and signature. So this must be the format of your formal letter. Be formal, be specific, be authentic of the words or the language what you are using it, such that it is rendered in a very effective tone, such that the person whom you are writing should get pleased and respond to your letter. So, writing formal letters are the most important things which you have to learn in your English communicative process. For the development of your professional growth, these are the letters which will please the authorities and pave a path of communication between you and the authorities in your professional life. So, try to practice them, try to use all the relevant formalities and try to structure your letters properly such that your needs will be fulfilled. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.